Hey friends, Ed McDonough here, and welcome to Live Stream Wednesday, coming to you from Walpole, Massachusetts, and streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on livestreamwednesday.com. And I'm really excited about today's show because communications is such an important part of what we do. And on today's show is communications coach Rich Austin. Now, Rich is not only a coach, he's also an author. He is the founder of Speaking of Success. He's also an expert at content creation and the president of Referral Xchange Networking, which promotes small group networking, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. So, Rich, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today, and thanks for being on.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to share the video stage with you.
Great. Yeah, same here. Same here. So, Rich, you and I have known each other for a long time. I'm in the Referral Xchange Networking group that meets in Attleboro, Mass. And you guys have done a great job with that. But tell us a little bit more about Speaking of Success and how you ended up, where you are today.
Wow. Yeah. It's a long and winding road, right? Started out, I've always kind of been intrigued with communications because, growing up all of my life, I was a pretty severe stutterer. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I, at the urging of my wife, enrolled in a speech therapy program at the University of Vermont. And it took about 3 years, but I got my stuttering under control. And, then I went on to a career in pharmaceutical, biotech, that sort of thing. And at the end of my, some people would like to say a meteoric rise. I say a meteoric rise. I left that and started Speaking of Success because, like I said, I've always been intrigued with the communications, and it's something that I love to do, something I love to talk about.
Yeah, awesome. I love hearing your story. How you overcome, something and turned it into a way to make a living at. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So tell us, how does a communications coach actually help people? Like, what do you do, and what's kind of the process that you take people through?
Well, there's a big difference between a communications coach and a speech therapist. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Speech therapist, I'm in awe of those folks. Great job. But as far as communications goes, a lot of people, as you know, have a real fear of speaking in front of others, of meeting groups of folks, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I try to provide is confidence. And people don't have confidence when they're about to speak in front of a group for a lot of reasons that you can control. If you really have a handle on your content and you know what you're going to say and you're convinced that you've got it so that it's clear. And then I work with them as far as speech techniques. Again, not speech therapy, but the tone of your voice, the speed, all the different things that we can all do to make our speech more understandable, more enjoyable, and more impactful.
Awesome. And so I should have said this earlier. No critiquing me today. All right. So
too late. I've already taken notes.
You're already taking notes. All right. I'm in big trouble then, folks. So, Rich, give me a tip. Give me a secret that you would tell somebody. If they really have this fear of, like, maybe coming on a live stream like this and being interviewed or whatever. What's kind of, is there a tip or a technique or something that you can give to somebody to help them work through that?
Of course, part of it depends on what they're afraid of.
Okay.
People are, afraid of all sorts of different things. One of the tips that I would give people is, if you think you're going to mess up, then you're right. You will. And so what? It really doesn't matter, because everybody is going to mess up. And people know that. And they take it into account. And most of the time, they're just happy it's you messing up, not them. So enjoy yourself. It's a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody wants to see some pretty beautiful mess ups, go watch some of my past live stream Wednesdays.
Oh yeah, I mean, oh my God, I've been looking at them.
There you go. My last guest who was Carrie Corin, who
Oh yeah, Carrie.
The whole beginning, and she goes, "Oh, thank God, it takes the pressure off of me." So that was really funny. So so a question I have for you is, what's the most important part of like one-on-one or verbal communications?
Interesting. Some of that has changed because of the situation in 2020. Studies show, and this is very interesting, if you look at a communication process, 55% of it is the tone of your voice, and 38% of it is your body language, and 7% are the words that you use. Now, that's what the studies show, but not 100% true, because those numbers, the 55, the 38, the 7, only apply to emotional communication. When you're having a regular communication, you're trying to sell something, you're trying to convince somebody of something, you're just trying to teach somebody something. Still, the tone of your voice and your body language are critical, but the words you use are also very important. You want to make sure that you're using the right words, and you want to control the speed. People say, well, how fast, how slow? And I say, well, think of anyone you admire as a public speaker, and you'll probably see they speak pretty slow. And part of that is you are able to communicate better. You're able to use a better vocabulary because you're giving your mind time to think about it. And you're showing respect for the person you're talking to by letting them know you're not just rushing through it, but you're trying to find the right words in the right way, so you're not wasting their time, and you're showing respect for who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about people like me who, see, I just said it, who suffer from filler speech? What are some, do you work with people that do that, and do you help them?
Yeah, filler speech is, kind of interesting. And you notice I just use the phrase, it's fine. Everyone does it. It's okay. However, I do tell people, the slower you speak, the less filler you're going to use. Everyone uses filler words. However, they increase tremendously when you're speaking quickly. So you don't have to speak ridiculously slow. Now, my rate of speech is just a tad slower than most people. And part of that is because I work on my speech every day because of the stuttering. And the other part is I like the way that it sort of keeps people calm. You're speaking with somebody who's, all excited or nervous, slowing the conversation down and using a slower speed of speech not only helps control the conversation, but it keeps all those filler words from popping up all the time.
That's an awesome tip. Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
I'm going to start practicing that. So thanks. So let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about storytelling, because I know that's another big part of what you do and how you help people. And why is that so important to communications and maybe even branding getting your message out there. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Storytelling is critical because if you're in business, you're selling something, either a product or a service. And who are you going to buy a product or service from? You're going to buy it from somebody that you like. There's very few instances where that's not the case. Now, granted, if I'm on fire and somebody I don't like is selling a fire extinguisher, I'm going to buy it from them. I don't care if I like them or not. But in most instances, people buy from people that they like. And you get people to genuinely like you when they know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to tell them who you are, what your story is, what your background is, and that answers the critical why question.
Mm-hmm.
Why should they buy you? Because you've convinced them that you're the person that they want to buy from because you're a nice individual. Now, granted, if you're just selling a horrible product or a service, you have a bad reputation, etc., you can be a great guy, but you're not really going to fill or check all the other boxes that they need to buy from you. So, but when you tell your story, and it's a unique story, and everybody's story is unique. Nobody gets to be an adult without going through a bunch of crap. We all know that. Life is a string of challenges. And if you're in business for yourself, you've overcome a lot of those challenges. And my job is to ask the right questions, to work with people to complete their story. And then once we've got their story down, and I have a whole process that I go through, a series of questions. Once we have their story down, then we work on how to deliver it concisely, entertainingly, hopefully, and so that people really know who you are and know why they want to buy from you.
Yeah, that's so important, Rich. And, being a marketing guy, that know, like, and trust factor, being as transparent as you can, in all your marketing and your sales process, I think is key. And that story is kind of the basis of that to really, especially from a cold prospecting point, don't you think? Like your initial contact with somebody who's, a cold prospect who doesn't know anything about you. Don't you feel that story is really critical at that point?
Yeah. And that can be tough to accomplish in the speed. Studies show that people judge you in a microsecond.
Yeah.
That wonderful book, Blink, by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about the fact that people look at something or someone and that judgment is quick as anything. Studies from Harvard show that if you make a first bad impression, it will take 7 interactions before that first bad impression is washed away. So you have to have a way to get your story out there, even just the little beginning of the story quickly, so that people want to know more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome point, Rich.
And part of that can also be your opening statement or your sales pitch. I worked with a woman. She had a great story, but how do you get people to ask about your story? So when somebody asks her, "What do you do?" We came up with, "Well, I help you get out of toxic relationships."
Yeah.
And people want to know about that.
Right.
And they say, "What do you mean?" And then she tells them her story about being hypersensitive to environmental chemicals and how she's come up with her own line of non-toxic household cleaning products, that sort of thing. And there, her story just seamlessly flows into her sales pitch.
Right.
But sometimes you have to have something like that just to get people to ask a question, because do you know when people are listening to you? When they've asked a question.
Ah, when they've asked the question, right? Right. Good point. Yeah. So it's having that hook, and
Right.
I know you work with people on that. Also help them with their taglines too for their business. What has changed in your business since COVID hit? You know, almost a year ago, 10 months, whatever, wherever we are. I know you were doing some work with videos, helping people create video stories or messages. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's really two parts to my business: the verbal communication coaching and content creation, because obviously content is a type of communication. But with the year 2020, just hopefully a distant distant dumpster fire by now. Um, with the year 2020, people don't go out and speak in public or in large groups. And that, people tend to think, well, then I'm all set. No, 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 no. When you're doing a video like we're doing right now, if you remember, I talked about body language, tone of voice, pitch of your voice, that sort of thing, and the words. On a video, body language is tougher. You're not getting the whole picture. Thank you. Right now we have heads. My head is much bigger than yours.
But it's always been that way.
And that's not really because of the size of the brain, but whatever. People have to understand that in video, the audio part of the communication is taking precedent over the body language that you would normally have in a face-to-face. So if you think that communicating on Zoom or Skype or something like that takes the pressure off from having to really communicate well, oh my God, you're absolutely wrong. Because people say, well, meeting one-to-one is more intimate. Well, true. However, you and I sitting here, it looks like your face is right up in front of me, and vice versa. We're communicating one-to-one. We're just not in the same physical space.
Right. Yeah, so important. So, Rich, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because I know this about you, is you're really big on education. And any comments about that?
Oh, yeah. As you know, as part of Referral Xchange, I write a educational segment every week. And I research those and make sure that they're geared towards small business people. Because in the small business world, I think education is absolutely critical. Because if your competition knows something that you don't know, they're going to come screaming past you, especially in a high technological society like we have today. The marketing things that you do, if you're not up on what is working on the technology, etc., your competition is going to be able to overtake you pretty quick. But I caution people, don't just focus your education on one thing, mathematics, science, technology, because the broader your education or your knowledge base, the broader you can reach out and come up with solutions and examples that somebody who doesn't have that broad spectrum of knowledge, they can't come up with that. They're going to look at it just from a technological standpoint, let's say. But if you've got all this other knowledge to draw from, then you're really able to come up with solutions that your competition would never come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a continuous learner as well. And, I spend a lot of money on education every year because just for that reason, it's just knowing what's out there. Maybe that you won't put it to use, but it's understanding that it's out there and either how you can use it to your advantage or how your competition can use it to your advantage so that you can, stay competitive, stay ahead of the game, if you will. Same thing with technology. I often tell people, don't go out and get the latest technology. Just go out and get the technology that's going to work for you. You don't need to have the latest, cell phone. All you need is one that works and does exactly what you need it to do. So it doesn't make sense to just go out and get the latest and greatest one every year unless yours doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I mean, someone recommended, Rich, you should get a high definition camera, and I'm like, really? Have you seen me? I'm like, no, I don't think I should go out and get a high definition camera. Thank you very much. When Lincoln was debating Douglas, and no, I wasn't in the room. Douglas accused him of being two-faced, and Lincoln said, "If I had two faces, would I be wearing this one?"
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm not going to run out and buy the latest tech. Yeah, it's tempting. But like you said, get good stuff that works well for what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Rich, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks so much for taking the time. I got your website up here, but how should people get in touch with you if they want to talk about using you as a communications coach? Or I know we didn't really talk about it too much today, but you do some really awesome content writing as well, and video scripts. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, usually they, send me a big sack of money. But if they're not so inclined to do that, the best way, obviously, is to reach me via email, info@speakingofsuccess.us. And I check my email, of course, all the time. And so anyone who tries to get in touch with me, I'll get back in touch with them probably the same day.
Right. Awesome. Well, Rich, hang out for a second. I'm just going to say goodbye to the folks, let them know what's coming up. And thanks again for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. On next week's show, we have Susan Finn. She's a digital marketing strategist and the founder of Rise Above Noise. So come join us for that. And one more thing before I go today. Would you like to be interviewed on Livestream Wednesday? Visit livestreamwednesday.com. Click the green Leave a Voicemail Here button and record and leave me a voice message. And someone from my team will get back to you within 2 business days. So thanks again for being here today, and we'll see you next week on Live Stream Wednesday.